A security camera snaps a photograph every 3 seconds. That is all it takes to capture a face, a build, a detail that could break a case wide open. On January 24th, 2006, a camera at an apartment complex in Orlando, Florida, recorded someone parking a black Chevrolet Malibu in the lot near the pool, sitting behind the wheel for roughly 30 seconds, then stepping out and walking away. The camera fired frame after frame, and in every single one, the person's face lined up perfectly behind the vertical bars of a fence. Frame 1, obscured. Frame 2, obscured. Frame 3, obscured. Not once did the camera catch an unobstructed image. Not once did it capture an identifiable feature. The FBI analyzed the footage. NASA enhanced it. Neither could tell investigators whether the figure was a man or a woman. The only thing they could say with any certainty was that the person stood somewhere between 5'3" and 5'5" and appeared to be wearing light-colored clothing. That car belonged to Jennifer Kesse. She had been missing since that morning, and that figure, whoever they were, walked away from her vehicle, disappeared around a corner, and has never been identified. 20 years later, Jennifer Kesse has not been found. Before we go any further, I want to know, where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city or your state in the comments, because someone watching this might live in Orlando. Someone might live near the Mosaic at Millennia, or the Huntington on the Green. Someone might have been there in January of 2006. And if that is you, stay with me. This one matters. Jennifer Joyce Kesse was born on May 20th, 1981, to Drew and Joyce Kesse. She grew up in the Tampa, Florida area, alongside her younger brother, Logan. By every account from the people who knew her, Jennifer was driven, independent, and fiercely loyal. Her sorority sisters at the University of Central Florida called her the mother hen, the one who looked out for everyone, who made sure her friends got home safe, who checked in when someone went quiet. She was the kind of person who, her senior year of high school, decided to join the track team and run the 2-mile just to earn 1 point for her team. She finished third. Her father was in the stands. Jennifer graduated from Gaither High School in Tampa in 1999 and enrolled at the University of Central Florida in Orlando, where she joined the Alpha Delta Pi sorority and earned a degree in finance in 2003. Upon graduation, she received multiple job offers and accepted a position as a finance manager at Central Florida Investments Timeshare Company, a subsidiary of Westgate Resorts, in Ocoee, just outside Orlando. She was promoted 3 times in her first year. By the time she was 24, she was the youngest manager in the company. Jennifer was building the life she wanted. In November of 2005, just 2 months before she vanished, she purchased her own condominium at the Mosaic at Millennia, a complex near the mall at Millennia in Orlando. She had a close relationship with her parents, speaking to them daily, sometimes multiple times a day. She had a boyfriend named Rob Allen, who lived in Fort Lauderdale, about 3 hours south. Yet the two had met in 2005 at the Tiki Bar in downtown Orlando, and had been together for roughly a year by January of 2006. Their relationship was long distance, but they saw each other most weekends. Friends and family described Jennifer as happy, self-confident, cautious, and responsible. Her parents had instilled a strong sense of safety awareness in both of their children, stemming from an incident years earlier when the family had been held up at gunpoint in New Jersey. Jennifer did not take risks. She checked in. She followed routines. She locked her doors. She was not the kind of person who simply vanished. Now that you know who Jennifer Kesse was, not just a name on a missing persons poster, but a daughter, a sister, a friend, and someone who worked hard for everything she had. Does she remind you of someone in your life? A sister, a coworker, a friend from college? Tell me in the comments. Because keeping Jennifer's name alive is not a small thing. It might be the most important thing. The weekend before her disappearance, Jennifer and Rob had vacationed together on the island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. They flew back on Sunday, January 22, 2006. Jennifer spent that night at Rob's home in Fort Lauderdale, then drove straight to work on Monday morning, January 23rd. It was a normal workday. She left the office at approximately 6 o'clock that evening. While driving home, she called her father around 6:15 p.m. and spoke with him during the commute. Later that evening, around 10 o'clock, she spoke with Rob on the phone. That call, as far as investigators have been able to determine, was the last confirmed contact anyone had with Jennifer Kesse. The next morning, Tuesday, January the 24th, 2006, Jennifer did not show up for work. This was immediately unusual. Jennifer was punctual. She was reliable. She had a meeting that morning. Every day without exception, she either called or texted Rob before leaving for her commute. That Tuesday, she did neither. When Rob tried calling her, the phone went straight to voicemail. Her phone had been powered off. About an hour and a half into the workday, Jennifer's employer called her parents. Drew Kesse tried to reach his daughter. The calls went to voicemail. He knew immediately something was wrong. Drew and Joyce made the 2-hour drive from their home to Jennifer's condo. They arrived at the Mosaic at Millennia sometime in the mid-afternoon, along with Jennifer's brother Logan. What they found inside the condo told a story that stopped mid-sentence. The shower was still wet. A towel was damp. Clothes and hair tools had been laid out. Signs that Jennifer had gotten up that morning, showered, and begun preparing for work. But something interrupted her routine before she could leave. Her car was gone. Her purse, her cell phone, her keys, her iPod, and her briefcase, all missing. There were no signs of a break-in, no signs of a struggle inside the condo. The Kesse family called the Orlando Police Department. The initial response was not what they expected. Because Jennifer was an adult, police suggested she may have left of her own volition. Drew would later recall that the responding officers essentially shrugged their shoulders and said she probably had a fight with her boyfriend and would be back. Rob had mentioned to investigators that he and Jennifer had a minor disagreement the night before, nothing significant, but that detail was enough for police to initially hold off on a full investigation. The officers left. Jennifer's family did not wait. That evening, they began canvassing the area with flyers. Friends, family, and sorority sisters joined the effort. It took approximately 48 hours from the time Jennifer was last heard from before the Orlando Police Department launched a full investigation. 2 days after Jennifer disappeared, on January 26th, a resident of the Huntington-on-the-Green apartment complex, a high-crime area located approximately 1 mile from Jennifer's condo, saw her car on the news and contacted police. The black 2004 Chevrolet Malibu had been sitting in the parking lot since the day she went missing. The car was locked. The keys were not inside. A DVD player and other valuables remained in the vehicle, which led investigators to rule out robbery. But Jennifer's phone, purse, iPod, briefcase, and keys were all absent. A forensic examination of the car yielded almost nothing. One latent fingerprint that belonged to Jennifer, and a small DNA fiber. Investigators concluded the vehicle had been wiped down, but investigators also found something else, a large boot print near the gas pedal. And photographs of the hood of the car revealed what appeared to be markings consistent with someone being pushed or pressed across the surface, spread marks as if hands had been dragged along the paint. Detective Julius Goes of the Orlando Police Department documented the observation, noting that it appeared someone had been pushed across the hood of the vehicle. Then came the surveillance footage from the Huntington-on-the-Green. The parking lot where Jennifer's car was abandoned had several hidden cameras. Investigators reviewed the recordings and found that at approximately noon on January 24th, the same day Jennifer went missing, an unidentified individual drove her car into the lot, parked it near the pool area, sat inside for about 30 seconds, then exited and walked away. Thus, the camera captured multiple frames of this person. In every single one, the fence posts lining the parking lot perfectly blocked the person's face. The camera took a still image every 3 seconds, and the timing of the person's stride matched the shutter interval in a way that produced nothing usable. No face, no distinguishing features. Just a figure in what appeared to be light-colored clothing, possibly painter's whites or a work uniform, walking calmly away as though nothing had happened. A reporter would later call this person the luckiest person of interest ever. The FBI was brought in to enhance the footage. They could not determine the person's gender, race, or age. They estimated a height between 5'3" and 5'5". NASA was also asked to process the images, and neither agency could produce a clear identification. A police K-9 unit tracked a scent from the driver's seat of Jennifer's car all the way back to her condo complex at the Mosaic at Millennia. That detail was significant. It suggested the person who dropped off the car may have walked back to the area where Jennifer lived. Investigators began the standard process of questioning those closest to Jennifer. Her boyfriend, Rob Allen, cooperated fully and was eliminated as a suspect. Her ex-boyfriend, who was reportedly upset about their breakup and had been distraught when he learned Jennifer had vacationed with someone new, was also questioned and cleared. Detectives then turned to Jennifer's workplace. A married coworker had reportedly been giving Jennifer unwanted attention and had made it clear he was interested in a relationship. Investigators interviewed him multiple times, but ultimately ruled him out as well. Then there was the matter of the construction workers. At the time of Jennifer's disappearance, the Mosaic at Millennia was undergoing a conversion from apartments to condominiums. A large construction crew was on site, and many of the workers were living in vacant units within the complex during the renovation. Jennifer had told her family on multiple occasions that these workers made her uncomfortable. They would stop what they were doing when she walked to her car. They catcalled and whistled at her. She did not feel safe around them. Her father recalled that whenever workers entered her unit for painting or repairs, Jennifer would stay on the phone with her parents, standing in the doorway until they left. Jennifer was not the only woman at the Mosaic who felt this way. A private investigator later hired by the Kesse family spoke with 6 other women who had lived at the complex during the same period. Each described similar experiences: uncomfortable stares, comments, a general feeling of unease when walking past groups of workers, particularly in the evenings. Investigators attempted to question the construction workers, but many were undocumented immigrants, and the language barrier presented a significant challenge. After Jennifer's disappearance became public, a substantial number of workers left the area. Some may have scattered due to concerns about their immigration status. Others simply moved on to other job sites. The window to conduct thorough interviews closed within days. Additionally, the security at the Mosaic was inadequate. The community was supposed to be gated, but the gate was not functioning properly, allowing anyone to come and go freely. A set of keys to the complex had reportedly been stolen a month before Jennifer disappeared. Security cameras had not yet been installed at the Mosaic itself, which meant there was no footage of Jennifer's final movements from her own building. The investigation stalled. Over 1,400 volunteers participated in organized searches of the surrounding area. Playing cards featuring Jennifer's photo and case details were distributed to jails across Central Florida. Her employer, Westgate Resorts, led by David A. Siegel, offered a $1 million reward for information leading to her safe return, with the July 4, 2007 deadline and the stipulation that she had to be found alive. And the reward went unclaimed. Jennifer's image appeared on billboards, buses, and digital signs across Florida. Her parents wrote to foreign embassies. They appeared on national news programs. And still, nothing. In June 2010, the FBI formally took over the case from the Orlando Police Department at the urging of then Police Chief Val Demings. The Bureau reviewed the evidence, conducted its own analysis, and handed the case back to OPD in February 2011 with recommendations. Progress remained elusive. You have now seen the same evidence the detectives had: the wiped-down car, the boot print, the markings on the hood, the surveillance footage that gave investigators a suspect they could never identify, and a trail that led right back to Jennifer's own building. Before I walk through the theories, I want to hear from you. What is your read on this? Drop your theory in the comments, because sometimes the people watching are the ones who see something the investigators missed. The leading theory, supported by the Kesse family and their private investigator, centers on the construction workers at the Mosaic at Millennia. The reasoning is straightforward. Jennifer had a fixed daily routine. She left for work at the same time each morning, parked in the same spot, and walked the same path. Workers living in the complex would have known her schedule. They would have known her car. Some had been inside her unit to perform maintenance. The person captured on surveillance appeared to be wearing light-colored clothing, consistent with a work uniform. The K9 scent trail led from Jennifer's car back to her condo complex, suggesting the person who moved the car was familiar enough with the area to return on foot. And many of the workers left the area shortly after the disappearance, making them nearly impossible to locate or interview in the years that followed. The private investigator hired by the Kesse family, Michael Toretta, a former federal agent, stated after reviewing the 16,000 pages of case files that he believes one or more construction workers took Jennifer by surprise that morning as she was leaving for work. That is the strongest theory on the table, but there is something that has never been fully explained. How was the crime scene so clean? No DNA in the car, no witnesses to the abduction itself, no noise that any neighbor reported hearing. If this was an impulsive act by a worker or workers, how was it carried out with that level of precision? Does that detail bother you the way it bothers me? Tell me in the comments which direction you are leaning, and why. A second theory involves someone Jennifer knew. Investigators looked closely at the married coworker who had expressed romantic interest in her and had been rebuffed. He was questioned repeatedly and ultimately not charged, but the theory that someone from her professional or personal life could have been involved has never been fully eliminated. The person on the surveillance footage walked with a calm, unhurried stride, no running, no panic. That composure has led some to speculate that the individual who moved the car was either experienced in criminal behavior or comfortable enough in the situation to act without urgency. There is also the question of the car being driven to the Huntington on the Green specifically, a complex that, while only a mile away, was not on any route Jennifer would have taken. Whoever moved it chose that location deliberately. A third theory, which the Kesse family has not dismissed, involves human trafficking. Jennifer was a young, attractive woman who lived alone in a complex with poor security. The organized nature of the disappearance, the apparent cleanup of the car, the absence of physical evidence, the methodical movement of the vehicle, has led some investigators and commentators to consider whether this was something more calculated than a spontaneous crime. No evidence has directly confirmed this theory, but investigators and the Kesse family have kept it on the table. And what is consistent across all theories is this: whoever took Jennifer Kesse did so quickly, quietly, and left almost nothing behind. That level of control, whether through planning, luck, or experience, is the reason this case went unsolved for as long as it did. This case was cold for close to 2 decades, 20 years without an arrest, 20 years without answers. But cold does not mean closed, and that distinction matters. If you have ever followed a case that was finally solved after years, after decades of silence, tell me about it in the comments. Those stories are proof that time does not have to win. What happened next in the Jennifer Kesse case is a story of a family refusing to accept silence. In 2008, the Florida House of Representatives unanimously passed Senate Bill 502, the Jennifer Kesse and Tiffany Sessions Missing Persons Act, reforming how missing persons cases are handled across the state. The law exists because of what went wrong in the first hours of Jennifer's disappearance. In 2018, after years of being denied full access to their daughter's case files, Drew and Joyce Kesse filed a lawsuit against the City of Orlando and the Orlando Police Department. Their argument was direct. The investigation had stalled, no new leads had been generated, and the department was refusing to release records that could allow a private investigation to succeed where the official one had not. The lawsuit was settled in March of 2019. The Kesse family received over 16,000 pages of documents, along with hours of audio and video recordings. And it was the first successful request for full case records in an active missing persons case in Florida. The family immediately hired private investigator Michael Toretta to comb through everything. He reviewed the files at least 3 times, conducted fresh interviews, and returned to the Mosaic at Millennia to speak with former residents. His work brought renewed attention to the case and generated new lines of inquiry. In December 2022, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement formally assumed the investigation. Since then, FDLE agents have conducted more than 115 interviews, reviewed tens of thousands of documents and pieces of evidence from the original investigation, and spent thousands of hours re-examining the case from the ground up. On May 20th, aged 2025, Jennifer's 44th birthday, the FDLE announced that the case was no longer considered cold. They revealed that they had identified several persons of interest and that artificial intelligence technology may potentially be used to help identify the figure in the surveillance footage. Then, in October of 2025, Drew Kesse announced a development that shifted the landscape of the case entirely. The FDLE had discovered DNA on evidence that had never been previously tested. contradicting earlier statements by the Orlando Police Department that DNA had only been found on the steering wheel. The person of interest list had been significantly narrowed. Drew stated publicly that the family now had a better chance of finding out what happened to Jennifer than at any point in the previous 2 decades. Was Jennifer Kesse has been missing since January 24, 2006. She was 24 years old. She had a family that loved her, a career she had earned through hard work, and a life she was building on her own terms. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a sorority sister who made sure everyone around her was safe before she worried about herself. The Kesse family has never stopped searching. They have spent their savings, hired investigators, sued the police department, fought for legislative reform, kept Jennifer's face on billboards and buses for 20 years, and have continued to advocate for their daughter every single day. Drew and Joyce Kesse have said they are also working with a production company to create a documentary series about Jennifer's case. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse, no matter how small, no matter how long ago, contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Orlando office at 407-245-0888 or email oroccoldcase, tips@fdle.state.fl.us. You can remain anonymous. One piece of information, even after 20 years, could be the one that brings Jennifer home. Jennifer Kesse remains listed as missing and endangered by the Orlando Police Department, the FBI, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the FDLE, NCIC, Interpol, and the National Center for Missing Adults. She has a quarter-size shamrock tattoo on her left hip, a surgical scar on the inside of her left elbow, and a defined cleft chin. The file stays open. The desk stays ready. Until next time. If this case stayed with you, if Jennifer's story made you want to keep these files open, subscribe to the Unsolved desk and leave a comment below. The more people who see this, the better the chance that the right person finally watches it.